What's up, everyone? It's Thursday. It's a magical Thursday. It is the first game of the NFL season, and I'm pumped. Adam, how pumped are you?
Yeah, obviously I'm pretty pumped because I'm a fan of the Dallas Cowboys, so most people know that. Unfortunately, though, it's a very difficult matchup against Tampa Bay, the defending world champions. All the starters are back, and we know the Cowboys have some issues going into this game. We know Zach Martin on the offensive line, Lyle Collins dealing with a little bit of a stinger, and Dak Prescott's first game since the ankle injury of last year, and we really didn't see him do much in the preseason at all. He obviously didn't play in any games and was limited at times in camp with that shoulder issue. So they're saying he's good to go. So I'm hoping we've seen the line move in this game all the way up to 9 points, with 6.5, 7 recently. So I'm just hoping that Dallas can be competitive in this game. And more importantly, I want a lot of fantasy points because I have a lot invested in this game.
Yes, me too, especially on the Dallas end. Any predictions as far as how you think the game's going to turn out?
Yeah, I think Dallas can keep it close. I think they'll cover the spread, but I don't think they're going to win. I did a Survivor piece article on fantasyalarm.com today, and I talked about how Tampa Bay is going to be one of the popular options this week. Again, when you're a fan, you got to be objective here, and as an analyst, you got to be objective. And Dallas just doesn't match up with Tampa Bay. I don't see them slowing down this offense that is just loaded, and we saw last year in the second half it really took off. Dallas addressed the defensive side through the draft, but we still have a lot of question marks about how good they are defensively. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup tonight, but I could see Dallas scoring late to lose by 7. And I do think we're going to see some points, so I would take the over 51.5. I just don't see Dallas slowing down this offense. The only way it'll happen is if they just get off to a slow start, rust, and Brady takes a while to get going. But in the end, I just don't see how Dallas can cover all these receivers.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with everything that you're saying, and definitely on the over. And I know we'll dive in later to some of the pricing on these players because there's some juicy prices in this one. So it'll be interesting to look at. But to kick things off, I know that Fantasy Alarm fans are very familiar with Adam, but I am new to the Fantasy Alarm family. So you guys have the pleasure of joining me for my first live stream with Fantasy Alarm. It's going to be great. It's going to be exciting. We are previewing tonight's game between the Cowboys and the Buccaneers. But before we kick off the show, I did want to mention Fantasy Alarm has teamed up with Yahoo Daily Fantasy this season to offer a new DFS experience. Why swim with the sharks when you can play weekly DFS fantasy games with fair opponents on Yahoo? For a limited time, get a free $25 contest entry with your first deposit for Fantasy Alarm. Use the promo code ALARM. All you have to do is go to fantasyalarm.com/Yahoo for more details. And we're also excited to announce that for week 1, the NFL season, we have created a 2K free roll contest just for our subscribers with a whopping $500 going to the winner. Woohoo! After you make your first deposit using the promo code ALARM with your free $25 contest entry credit, you can join our free roll contest by going to fantasyalarm.com/free roll and get into the action. So, what do you have to lose? Sign up for Yahoo Daily Fantasy today and join the family in winning. Now let's dive into some hot topics around the league. I had some things slated, but we obviously had some big news today. So let's kick it off with the obvious one, the Ravens running back situation. Adam, what you got?
Yeah, just devastating. I mean, Gus Edwards with reportedly a torn ACL. I mean, just talk about bad luck for these Ravens running backs. First, J.K. Dobbins gets hurt in the preseason. Then Justice Hill, who was third on the depth chart at the time, but I did take him in the last round of a draft, 20-round draft, so I had to cut him when waivers ran on Wednesday. And then today, Marcus Peters, Gus Edwards collision in practice looks like Marcus Peters could be out for the year as well. So the defensive side takes a big hit. I mean, it's crazy what's going on with the Ravens running backs. They obviously recently signed Le'Veon Bell. I don't think he has anything left. I am not interested in him. I mean, if it was a really deep league and you're desperate, sure, but I would not be spending a lot of fab on him. And then they signed Devontae Freeman as well, another guy that I don't think has much left. So, yeah, it's pretty dire right now. So those that added Tyson Williams off waivers or drafted him, he's in a good spot, should be the main back on Monday night against the Raiders. But, yeah, this whole situation is just, it's crazy. And I think Latavius Murray might be a guy they bring in. I know he was saying that he wanted to wait to see what happens this weekend, but he did mention the Ravens a couple days ago. And Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation right now. Williams is the only guy, though, I would play this week. And maybe they make a trade too, right? Melvin Gordon, maybe one of the Tampa Bay backs. So Baltimore's probably going to do something because they have Super Bowl aspirations.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's funny you mentioned deep leagues. I did pick up Le'Veon Bell, but I did it before today for free. I wasn't spending any money. Come on. Right. When the news of him going on to the practice, or at least trying out, I went and grabbed him in a few deep leagues where the best available running back out there is legitimate, like Todd Gurley, which is crazy.
Right.
So yeah, maybe some trade bait. It's crazy. I didn't think it'd end up being this way. Assuming that Le'Veon and Devonta Freeman both move up from the practice squad onto the roster, I know you're saying Tyson Williams. Between those two, Le'Veon and Devonta, do you see either one of them stepping out in front and possibly even contributing something significant?
I would be surprised. It just doesn't look like Bell had anything left. He was in a great situation last year with Kansas City. I mean, their offensive line wasn't good because CEH struggled behind them too, but Bell just didn't look like he had much left. He got older. Maybe the year sitting out really hurt him. But I'm assuming he's probably going to be active. I think they did move him up from the practice squad if I saw that in the last hour. My guess is they have no one else. He'll probably have to be active on Monday night. So, but again, a deep league, 20 round, like the Scott Fish Bowl, which I'm assuming you play in, or a high stakes league where it's 20 rounds and maybe you lost a couple players. You want to take them, put them at the end of your bench just in case. Because again, we could be wrong. I think a lot of people believe Bell's done, but maybe we're wrong. And maybe there is an opportunity. And this is a great situation with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. We know the running lane's open. So, yeah, like you did, picking up for free, no problem with that. Deep league, and maybe he's the first cut after week 1. Or maybe, surprisingly, hopefully for you, he does well, and maybe you have something.
For people that might be thinking about picking him up, what are you thinking about in terms of fab? How much were you, or if you needed a running back and you were in a dire situation, how much are you willing to spend on him?
Hardly anything, a few bucks, like 1-2%. Really, I just don't see it. Again, if he was that highly coveted, we probably would have seen him sign before then. And the Ravens are just in a desperate situation right now where I think they're just like, all right, we got to get some veterans. And I'm sure they're huddling up. They're going to come up with a plan. And again, I could see them potentially making a trade. Melvin Gordon immediately comes to mind. I mean, they clearly love Javonte Williams there. I think Gordon would be, and if you drafted Melvin Gordon and he goes to Baltimore, that's a win for you.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you were saying about Latavius Murray makes sense too. It's very possible. Obviously, he is an older back, but based off what he did last year, he looked excellent, and like he's still got some room left in him to provide some good value this season.
That would be the guy to pick up. I mean, I went to check though in a couple leagues, my deeper formats, he wasn't available. So maybe people held on to him thinking, all right, well, because it just happened too. Yeah. So maybe they just held on and said, all right, let me see where he goes. Yeah, it was a little surprising because he was productive last year and he didn't want to take the pay cut with the Saints. And he probably saw that Tony Jones, because Sean Payton was speaking highly of him. So, yeah, Latavius Murray behind this Ravens offensive line with Lamar Jackson, that would be the guy. So if you want to stash him now and see if you're desperate, sure. I think that makes more sense. I'd rather take that shot.
Yeah, completely agree. And then one last thing regarding the Ravens before we move on. Is there a reality in which, is Lamar the big beneficiary of all of this? Are they going to really rely on him? And is there a reality where, in addition to the rushing, are they going to maybe try to increase the pass volume? I know it would be hard because they're very lacking, poor injury Ravens, very lacking in the receiving core as well.
Yeah, Rashad Bateman, another guy that's going to start the year on injured reserve. It looks like Hollywood Brown's good to go. Miles Boykin on IR, not that you were expecting much from him, but yeah, their receiving core is very thin. It's Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown, Sammy Watkins, right? So we know he usually has his big week 1 and then that's it. But yeah, I do think you probably, at least early in the season, and especially this week, you will see Lamar run a lot. I know they're always going to say with a running quarterback, we want him to run less. But when you're an athlete and you're in the pocket and you see a running lane, you don't think, well, they want me to run less so I don't get hit, so I'm going to stay here. No, you're going to take off. You see the open lane. So I do see Lamar Jackson. This could be a game where he runs 10, 15 times. especially if they only have Bell and Freeman, who are new to the team. So this week and maybe week 2, definitely, I think you see Lamar run a little bit more.
Nice. And, the other news that we had around the league that was cut off because of the big Ravens running back drama, the Austin Eckler news was the thing that was really popping up a lot. A lot of questions regarding that. So, I saw the update that he sat out practice again. He was in pads. He was dressed, but didn't actually do anything. So have you heard anything else? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, same thing. I saw what you saw, that he did not practice but was present on the field. And tomorrow is going to be the big practice day. So, people always panic. And I always remind people that it is Thursday. I know there's a game tonight. So if you have a player in a game tonight, post Austin Eckler, yeah, you got to make a decision. But everything else, you got 3 days. You got to wait till Sunday morning. You always want to make the most informed decision with the most information you have. I get it. People want their starting lineups done now, but we really can't give you a great answer on Austin Eckler. If he practices tomorrow, then you feel good and you're probably going to play him. But it's a tricky situation. Trust me, I do have Eckler in the league, and I'm definitely concerned about it. But you're going to have to wait until Sunday. I guess the difficult decision is tonight, right? I mean, if you have Eckler and a Fournette or Ronald Jones, what do you do? And that's a tough situation. If those are your only options, that's a difficult decision to make, because you would like to wait for Eckler, but you don't want to. But I think at this point, with no buys, you should have another option, right? Yeah. Where you could say you have Fournette and Eckler, you could sit Fournette, wait for Eckler, and if Eckler doesn't go, hopefully you have someone else on your roster on Sunday to play.
Yeah. That makes sense. And in the event that he doesn't play, or actually before in the event that he doesn't play, is there any back that is actually startable in this offense for the Chargers, or are you pivoting altogether?
Probably going in a different direction. I would think maybe Justin Jackson, but they still have Josh Kelly there, Larry Roundtree they drafted, so we don't know how they would play this. I mean, it could be all three involved. Jackson, obviously, more experienced in this offense. Kelly was there last year and struggled. So I don't think I would have in my rankings any of those guys in the top 30 running backs, just because we don't know how it's going to be distributed, unless, multiple beat reporters come out and say, Staley said that Jackson's going to be the guy. So if we don't hear any clarification on that, I don't think you can feel good about starting any of them. Again, especially week 1, where you should have a multitude of options, unless you just really been hit hard by injuries and, you drafted Gus Edwards and Dobbins and
Akers. And
if that's the case, then you're desperate. And I'm sure there's some teams out there like that.
Yeah. And, you kind of hit the head on the nail when it comes to waiting out these injuries, because, the other day we heard Chris Godwin, and the news on it sounded absolutely dramatic. Like, well, we don't know if he's going to be able to go. It'll be last minute, and all of a sudden he's back at practice and good to go, and there's no issue at all. So, I guess maybe people are a little bit worried because of the situation last year with his hamstring, but it's probably not something that's completely related. And just wait it out.
Let's hope so for anyone at Eckler, because and he was being drafted frequently in the first round. I mean, I saw some high stakes leagues where he went as early as number 4 overall. So there was a lot of excitement for Eckler. Caught 92 passes 2 years ago, and now with Joe Lombardi coming over from the Saints, a lot of people feel. I mean, to me, he is basically a poor man's Alvin Kamara to begin with. Anyway, He doesn't get the carries or goal line, but he's heavily involved in the passing game. So people were excited about him. So let's just hope that he's good to go for Sunday.
Speaking of a poor man's Alvin Kamara, which I love, before we move on to the pregame, that does kind of bring up Deandre Swift, who Detroit is hoping to use in a very similar way. We had a lot of concern around him regarding the injury, and suddenly he is apparently all good to go, no restrictions or anything. So, we hear a lot of injuries, but are you comfortable starting Deandre Swift? Are you worried about him being on any kind of snap count limitations?
It doesn't, if you believe what the coaches say, which is always dicey, it appears that there will not be. So I think he's an RB2 this week, low RB2, I would say. Because they should be playing from behind. They're home, 7.5-point underdogs. Swift is one of those players that I don't have, that I look back and I feel like I might have some regret, especially as he fell to the 4th round, because he's going to catch a lot of passes. They're going to throw to him. They don't have a lot of receivers. It should be, I think Hockenson leads the team in targets. Swift should be 2. I know there's a whole talk about Jamal Williams, 1A, 1B, and I think Williams will be solid too. But yeah, I mean, I think Swift is like, I have him like right around RB 18, RB 19 this week in PPR. So I think in a lot of situations, you probably drafted him in the 3rd, 4th round. Maybe you got lucky, he fell to the 5th recently. But most leagues I saw 4th round. So you're probably starting him.
Awesome. So I guess it's time for us to move into the game preview. We've got Dallas and we've got Tampa. Let's start off with season long and then head into DFS. And we can start off with starts and sits. We know the big guys. When it comes to Dallas, we know Dak, we know Zeke. I know there's offensive line concerns there, but I don't think that anyone's letting an offensive line. If you drafted Zeke, he's your number 1 running back. You drafted him in the 1st round. You're not going to let that stop you from actually starting him this week. And then we've got the wide receivers, which in theory should all be a good sit. But I've seen a lot of people that are a good starts, but I'm seeing a lot of people that are kind of a little bit worried about Amari Cooper. I don't know if it's the injury concern or maybe, to do with the offense as a whole. But how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, now you play Cooper. I mean, here's the thing. Dallas is going to have to pass a lot. Tampa Bay is phenomenal against the run. The last 2 years, they just shut teams down. And again, I expect Dallas to play from behind. Cooper, there was concern about his health, but he played in one of the preseason games. He looked fine. He's got a good rapport with Dak Prescott. He's been excellent since he's come over to Dallas. So he's been pretty consistent. So I'm playing him. I have him in 2 leagues. There's no questions. The targets are going to be there for him. So I'm playing Amari Cooper. I'm not worried about the matchup.
Do you see one of them popping more than the other between him and CD?
Probably CD. He's obviously had a great training camp, and his price just increased like crazy. We talk about drafting early, how you benefit. I mean, some early drafts, like talking June, July, you could have gotten Lamb in the 4th round. Then he started to move up, and I saw leagues where he went late 2nd round. I was very ecstatic last night to get him at 3-9. That's more of like an office league, so you always have a couple of bad people in there. So I was really happy to get him at 3-9. So yeah, I mean, Lamb just looks like he's primed to have a big year. So, yeah, I prefer Lamb. But, again, I think they're both good starts. And, even if you had to go to Michael Gallup, he's a guy that one big play can make the day. And he's kind of the deep threat there. So I think he's, again, not the best play. But if you were hurting at wide receiver or you're in a deeper format, I think he's, like a wide receiver 4 if you really needed to. I have him in a few leagues. I don't plan on starting him. But if you were in a situation where you really needed someone, again, Dallas should be passing a lot tonight.
Yeah, completely agree. But then I get to guys that you might be more inclined to sit. And I think that's where you get to the tight end position because we're still a little bit unsure of what's actually going to happen there. We don't really know specifically how much Dalton Schultz will be involved. We know that Blake Jarwin's the one with the big contract. We know he's the one that they really believe in. But I mean, the reality of them just completely fading Dalton Schultz to the bench and not actually using him, it seems, slim to none. And then with the amount of mouths that they have to feed in terms of those wide receivers, even Gallup is someone who is highly talented for Dak to target. So, what are we doing with this tight end situation with Jarwin?
Yeah, I don't think you could play either of them. Like you said, you need to see how it plays out. I mean, there was a lot of expectations for Jarwin last year, and then he got hurt. I think it was week 1. And Schultz came in and played very well. And Jarwin's coming off the torn ACL, so you could see them rotate. That's one of the things to watch tonight is how they deploy these 2 tight ends. What are the snaps? What are the situations they use both? So in that case, yeah, you cannot use either tight end tonight.
Yeah. And then maybe kind of taking it to DFS, which is where things get interesting because when we got week 1 DFS, we've got some kind of unusual pricing that we can look at. And, one of the things that pops out, Dak's not going to be an unusually priced person. But when you look at those wide receivers, you kind of look in there and you're like, CeeDee Lamb, very reasonable price. Amari Cooper, reasonable price. How are you feeling about those guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to use Dak. I mean, if you're going to play 2 quarterbacks and use him and Brady, it's fine. I think that's the big question mark is like, how is Dak going to look? Again, I think the pass attempts are going to be there. So obviously Brady is, I think, the better play. I mean, I think Brady should definitely put up big numbers tonight. And again, the receivers are fine plays as well. Obviously, a lot of people are going to be on the Tampa Bay side, and that's certainly understandable. But you probably do want to get some piece of the Cowboys offense, and you would think it would be the receivers that shine through tonight. Zeke is in a tough spot. It's a really difficult matchup where he's going to have to get it done is in the passing game. We saw last year he had 23 receptions the first 4 games with Dak last year as they were playing from behind and Dak was looking for him. So that's really where Zeke's going to have to come through because it's going to be really difficult for him to gain those rushing yards without Martin and against this staunch Tampa Bay run defense.
Mm-hmm. So heading over to Tampa Bay, I mean, starters galore. One of the teams that's blessed to say where you can legitimately look at every single wide receiver, all 3 starting, and say, of course I'm playing them all. But do you have a preference for which one you're prioritizing?
Yeah, I know it might sound crazy, but for me, it's Antonio Brown. I just think he's going to have a big game tonight. We've heard nothing but positive things in training camp. They said he's looked the best he has in years. Last year, from week 9 to the Super Bowl, he led the team in receptions. I know Godwin was banged up. Evans was at times too. But Brown came in cold in the middle of the season. We know Tom Brady loves him. So I like Brown tonight. I mean, but they're all top plays. I mean, Evans could score a touchdown easily. Godwin, as you alluded to before, was dealing with a little bit of a injury, but was taken off the injury report. He's fine. So they're all good plays tonight, but I have a sneaky feeling that we're going to see a really good game from Antonio Brown tonight.
Same. Yeah. If I can get to my phone and do a little showdown right before this, because I did not prepare before our call, if I can do it, definitely Brown. But, wide receivers, obviously fantastic. But then we head over to the running backs. I don't know about you, but it's not a situation that I'm touching with a 10-foot pole. It's kind of crazy. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it really is such a headache because you've got Leonard Fournette who had the great postseason run. Ronald Jones looked really good at times last year. And then you also have Giovanni Bernard, who they're talking about real comfort in the passing game. We know Brady likes to dump off to the running back. So, yeah, this is a little bit of a headache. If you really want to go against the grain, because in a DFS showdown slate, everyone's going to be on the receivers, Brady. Maybe you sneak in a Ronald Jones, hoping that he finds the end zone. But it's risk. In season long, I'm not using them. I just can't, and I don't have them ranked highly. The week 1 rankings are on FantasyAlarm.com for PPR, half point PPR, and non PPR, and I'll update them daily up until kickoff. But yeah, in season long leagues, I'm not confident. In a DFS showdown slate, you got to be contrarian somewhere. So if you want to go with one of the running backs, save some money, and hope they find the end zone once or twice is certainly possible. So in that case, probably Ronald Jones.
Yep, that's what I was thinking too. He is on Yahoo. Fournette is priced at $20, and Rojo is priced at $17. So he can save you a little. And yeah, I like it. Going a little contrarian there and including them within the layout totally makes sense. And I would be remiss if I left out Gronk.
Yeah, look, Gronk really came on last year towards the end of the season, and he took some time to get acclimated. I think he's a tight end 2 this week. I actually am starting him in the league because I had Irv Smith as my lone tight end. So when I went to the waiver wire, he was like the best option. So I am starting him and hoping that he can find the end zone tonight. But yeah, we know Brady looks for him in the red zone, and when you have to worry about Edmonds, Godwin, and Brown, it can leave Gronk in a situation, a lot of one-on-one. So that's another guy that maybe is not popular tonight that you could put in there. But for season long, he's a tight end 2 for me this week.
Yeah, side note, Irv Smith too. Yeah, that one hurt me a lot too. I had one where I had to deal with waivers and trying to pick him up. I think I pivoted to Gerald Everett, but where I had him a lot was in best ball, so there's nothing I can do about that. Very sad situation.
Yeah, it really was, because I thought Irv was going to have a nice year.
Same. I was very high, and some people, I feel like it's people were either one or the other. They were like, really, Irv Smith, it's all going to Jefferson, Thielen, and Dalvin. It's not really, he's not really going to be relevant. And, I think a lot of people forget that he was on the field a significant amount of time last year. He just didn't get a lot of those significant touches in the red zone that were going to they were going to Kyle Rudolph. So I really felt like he was going to be able to get that chance to step up into that tight end one role, have a great season, and he had a fantastic connection with Kirk Cousins. So yeah, I was pretty optimistic on that one.
Yeah, I think he was going to have a good year. I agree.
But I think we can head on to take some questions from Discord, guys. And just a reminder to everyone that's watching, we are taking questions live from Discord, from the Fantasy Alarm Discord, DFS Alarm as well within Discord. So if you just go to the Fantasy Alarm Discord, check out the Fantasy Alarm website, make sure that you are connected so that you can sign up for Discord, and it should automatically pop up in there. Head in, ask us questions. We are answering them right now. And I'm going to kick us off with a question from user Raiders5252. Half PPR. 10-team, starting Stafford, currently have Matt Ryan 2. Is a backup necessary in 10-team, or swap for Elijah Moore or Terrace Marshall?
For me, and I play different, this all comes down to your personal preference. In a 10-team league, I feel like there's always going to be a backup option. So if most of the teams in your league only have one backup, that's 20 quarterbacks, I'm okay dropping the backup. I'd rather have the skill position player. You're playing Stafford this week anyway. And we know quarterbacks always emerge off the waiver wire. We saw it last year with Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert. Same thing's going to happen again this year. So I would make the cut for Elijah Moore. I mean, the Jets beat writers were raving about this guy in trading camp. Every day he was making plays. We didn't see him in the preseason, so some of the hype has died down. But I could see him having a really good week this week. So I would make the move for Elijah Moore.
Yeah, side note on Elijah Moore. Ultimately, how do you see that situation playing out with him and Corey Davis? For me right now, I'm seeing Corey Davis as the clear one, but do you see him being able to come in there and maybe get a chance to build that rapport a little bit more? And as the season moves on, who do you think is taking that number one spot?
Yeah, you're right. It looks like Corey Davis is the number one, right? They brought him in, they paid him, and we saw in that preseason Zach Wilson was looking for him almost every single play, even though, again, Moore was out. But it looks like Corey Davis is going to be the one, but I think Moore should be the two. We know Crowder's dealing. We don't even know if Crowder's going to play this week. But, yeah, Elijah Moore looks like he's got a lot of ability, and the Jets are going to be improved. Wilson has looked good. Offensive line is better. So I think people still kind of look at the Jets as like, oh, same old Jets. And I did see where they're projected to have at least betting odds, one of the worst 3 records in the league. I don't see that happening. I think they're going to be a little bit better than that. So I think this offense has some pieces. The new coaching staff, Robert Saleh coming in, I think is a good hire. And I think the culture is going to change. So I think Moore is behind Corey Davis right now.
Do you feel let's get in the weeds a little bit when it comes to Keelan Cole versus Jamison Crowder, Denzel Mims? Is he completely out? Are we giving up on him?
For now, yeah. I mean, he just really fell behind, and this coaching staff, didn't draft him. It's a little surprising how far he has fallen. So, yeah, I mean, it's not like the Jets offense is going to support multiple receivers for fantasy purposes. So it's Corey Davis, it's Elijah Moore. And obviously, we're watching that backfield to see what happens. So, I think at some point this year, Michael Carter does emerge as the guy. But right now, they kind of have him third on the depth chart behind Tevin Coleman and Ty Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Now let's take a DFS question. We've got Hants03. Who do you like in the captain for the showdowns tonight?
Well, it's easy to go Tom Brady, or I might go with Antonio Brown. I just feel, and that will save you some money too, but I just think he's going to have a big game tonight. So I think Brady will be popular, as he should be, but I'm kind of feeling Antonio Brown.
Yeah. I was actually just talking to my brother about that, and he was saying he was going to be a little risky and go with Antonio Brown in the captain's position. So I'm awesome. I hope he's tuning in and he hears that Adam agrees and confirms it and goes with it. So another question, let's move back to season long. And we've got a question from Wolves Greater Than Sheeps. That's a good name. Start sit question. Full PPR. In flex, Antonio Brown or Damian Harris?
Okay. Well, I've talked so much about how I love Antonio Brown. Damian Harris obviously looked really good in the preseason. Going up against the Miami defense is pretty good. I'm going to go with Antonio Brown. I know a lot of times people like to go with the running back in the flex, but Damian Harris is still going to need to find the end zone. He could have 18 carries, get 86 yards, not catch a pass, and not score. It's 8.6. And if you're talking PPR, Antonio Brown could eclipse that with 5 for 50, and then if he finds the end zone. So again, this Cowboys defense is not very good. I think you're going to see Antonio Brown get open consistently. So I'm going Antonio Brown.
Yeah, I would love to actually pivot with the Damian Harris to kind of talk about the Sunday games a little bit. So with the New England backfield, I know a lot of people are a little bit skeptical around Damian Harris for PPR because, as you said, we technically don't know exactly who's going to be catching those passes out of the backfield. Is James White? I know he had a very tough year last year, and is he going to be able to come back and reclaim that role of being the pass catching back? We know that there's JJ Taylor as well. I don't know how much he's going to factor in from that perspective. So, are you worried about playing Damian Harris in PPR? Are you feeling comfortable with it? I mean, when you look at him from last season in games where he actually got a significant amount of carries, his starts were pretty usable. He was surpassing 100 yards. The only thing that he was missing was those touchdowns. So how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think he's an RB2. I think you can play him for sure. We know they're going to emphasize the run game there in New England. And James White, I do expect to be solid in PPR too, especially with Mac Jones there. I think that's going to help. You mentioned White had a lot of off the field tragedy happen to him. So you could understand everything that he endured last year, and then Cam Newton not really checking down to running backs. But we know Mac Jones not as mobile, so he will check down. So I think White's a fine play too in a deeper format in PPR. But yeah, I think you could use Harris. And a lot of people started to draft him, 6th, 7th round. So people have him as their RB2, and they are counting on him. So yeah, I think you could roll with him. And it is going to be touchdown dependent though. But this run game definitely looks pretty good, and he might find the end zone quite often.
Awesome. We've got another season-long question. I like this one because we don't get questions a lot about deep leagues, and we've got one for a 14-team league. So I've got a question from eDubs27, 14-team, full PPR, and it's a trade question. It was offered Jonathan Taylor for DK Metcalf. And did give a lot of context around it. Other running backs that this user has are David Montgomery, Myles Gaskin, Devontae Williams. So he's got pretty good at the running back situation. And then the receivers that he has are Calvin Ridley, Deontay Johnson, Jalen Waddle, Jacoby Meyer, Terrace Marshall. Pretty good on that. And it sounds like a really good 14-team league.
Yeah, so he would be getting Taylor, right, for Metcalf?
Yeah.
I could see doing that with his running backs. It's kind of odd because I'm assuming Taylor went ahead of Metcalf in the draft. So it's a very interesting offer. I'm not sure why it was offered on the other end. So, yeah, I could see doing that. It looks like Quentin Nelson is going to be good to go. I know they've talked about getting Naheem Hines involved more, but Taylor was so good last year when he had the big workload. So in a 14-team league, those running backs are okay, but you don't really have the RB1. And you got Ridley there. So I could see making that deal. So if you want to do it, I'm okay with it.
Awesome. And then let's do a DFS question from Alec1162. Recommended start at quarterback, Kirk Cousins or Ryan Tannehill?
I like Tannehill this week because the Arizona secondary is in shambles. It is not very good. The game is projected, I think, 52, 53 points. I think that's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't know why Tannehill doesn't get the respect he deserves. I saw some drafts where he just really fell. He's been excellent the last 2 years, and I just think that the numbers are going to go up because he's going to pass more. He didn't even have 500 pass attempts last year. And I think that secondary is a concern. The defense isn't as good. So, yeah, they want to lean on Derrick Henry, but I think there's going to be some game scripts where they can't and they have to go away. And you don't bring in Julio Jones and not use him. He's healthy right now. A.J. Brown's good to go. So, Tannehill. I know Cousins has a good matchup as well on the road against Cincinnati, but I think they're going to obviously get Dalvin Cook going. And if they're playing from ahead, it could result in less passes. So, both good matchups, but I like Tannehill at home against Arizona.
I agree. So let's do a let's go back to a season-long question. We've got username Hideout. So I got outbid. I got outbid nasty for Sony Michel, but the person that outbid me dropped Justin Jackson. Should I stash him?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on who you drop, what your situation is. Everyone wants to stash every player, and we just can't. So if you have an open spot due to IR, sure, just in case to see what happens with Eckler. But it all depends on who you drop, because this happens all the time. And I'm sure you experienced this too. You make a comment about a player, and I've done this many times on the radio, and then, oh, I just heard you talk about this guy. Should I pick him up? I can drop this guy. And then I see the drops. I'm like, no, you can't drop any of those guys.
Yep.
It's all context dependent. So it really depends who you're dropping to acquire Justin Jackson. But if you have an open roster spot and you want to stash him, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. So let's do another question from Discord, and it is a quarterback, one or the other. From Sir Fatness, the quarterbacks are Dak or Hurts. That's a pretty good question.
That is a very good question, because I have them ranked back to back. I have Dak slightly higher. I do like Jalen Hurts this week in Atlanta, in the Dome, fast track. Atlanta was the worst team against the pass last year. They allowed the second most points to fantasy quarterbacks. I think Hurts is going to play well. I lean towards Dak because he's healthy. He's good to go. He's going to pass a lot. Yes, it's a difficult matchup, but Dak can throw for 270, 280, 2 touchdowns, maybe 3, especially as they play from behind. They're going to try and run Zeke. I just don't think it's going to be effective. I mean, Tampa Bay has shown over and over again you cannot run against them. So I lean Dak. If you want to go Hurts, I won't argue against it. Again, they're ranked back to back. So, but I'll lean Dak here.
Yes. And, seeing as how we're talking about Dak in the Thursday night game, maybe a little bit of strategy talk, because I know people get a little bit, I personally can't, I love watching the Thursday night games, but in terms of starting players on the Thursday night games, I feel like I always get burned. Now, maybe it's different because it's week 1 and, you don't have that potential issue of being on a short week and players having issues with that. But, in terms of strategy, how do you typically tend to lean and utilize those Thursday games?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to play the best guys, usually is what I'll try and do. I know people always worry about the short week and, players tend not to do well. But if you got an elite player, you're going to play him. Everyone's going to have a bad game once in a while. Obviously, tonight's different because, they haven't played in 2 weeks. And most of these guys, at least on the Dallas side, haven't even played in the preseason, or at least not that much. We know Zeke and Dak haven't played. So I'm going to play. I think tonight's a game where we have a lot of appealing factors. We're probably going to get a week where we have 2 bad teams where it's a little bit more difficult. But most of the time, I'm just going to play my players that I think are best and understand that a bad game can happen at any point.
For sure. And then I've got one more question from Discord from Shawnee Mac 32. PPR trade. And I'm going to assume this is not. Actually, you know what? Let's answer it from a dynasty perspective and then one from a redraft perspective. J-Rob for Keenan Allen.
Oh, I mean, I'd rather have Keenan Allen, but again, it all depends on roster. What you have. If you're pretty strong at running back, because remember, Robinson, before the ETN injury, was falling in drafts. I mean, I got him in a draft as like RB 35. Like, I had no designs of taking him. He wasn't on my radar. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, James Robinson's still here? Okay, I'll take him. And this was early August. Now I look like a genius, but I really wasn't. I got lucky. I fully admit it. Like, he wasn't on my radar. I just said, all right, this value's falling too far. What if I'm wrong? What if he plays a bigger role and ETN's not involved as much? Obviously, that doesn't matter now. But, I mean, Keenan Allen is just a guy that commands so many targets. I know the yards per reception were down last year, but I think the offense is going to be more efficient this year. They ran a lot of plays last year. They might not this year, but the offensive line is the best they've had for this Chargers team in a long time. And Allen's the go-to guy. Mike Williams is already banged up. So I prefer Allen if you're just asking me to compare them side by side. But as far as a trade, it all comes down to roster composition and what do you need more. And that's very important for people to understand, because we could say Keenan Allen's the better player, but you might have no depth at running back, and you can't afford to take on Keenan Allen.
For sure. So, I think maybe we pivot for a second and maybe go to the Sunday games and kind of talk about those slates for a little bit right here, and then head back over to wrap up with some questions for Discord. Again, reminder, everybody, if you're watching and you want your question answered, head over to the Fantasy Pros Discord, put your question in, and we will answer them. So heading over to the Sunday games and maybe talking about some players that you're targeting from a DFS perspective, or even if you've got some players that maybe people are on the fence about in terms of are they a flex play? Are they someone that we're going to sit out? And let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, again, I like Hurts. I think he's a solid play. I know on Yahoo he's the 14th highest priced quarterback this week. So if you want to go a little down on price, I think he's interesting. In the last 4 games last year, he averaged 23.7 Yahoo points per game, and he didn't even complete that 4th game. That was the game they tanked and they pulled him. So he was pretty solid last year, and it's a good matchup. Devontae Smith, obviously, inside the dome on that carpet there, I think he's not a bad option. The tight ends are tricky because, Ertz is really cheap. So if you really want to save money, maybe you can go at Ertz because it looks like he'll be involved. That's definitely something I'm watching this week. I don't think you could play Miles Sanders in DFS. It's just Gainwell's there. Scott, reports of him dropping passes in the preseason. And on the Atlanta side, Ryan's not a bad play. You got to like Calvin Ridley. I think he's like $30 on Yahoo, and we know he's going to get peppered with targets. And I think Kyle Pitts as well. I think we all expect him to come out, have a big game. He was drafted 4th, 5th round. I was able to get him in a couple leagues. Mike Davis, probably not. I've made it pretty clear I'm not a fan of Mike Davis for season long. I don't think he will be the running back at the end of the year. He wore down last year, 28, 29 years old. I just don't see how those running backs all of a sudden get a full workload and they do well. I just don't recall ever seeing it, so I'm not a fan of him. But in PPR formats, in DFS, I still wouldn't use him. I just think there's better options. So, yeah, Atlanta's mainly Ridley and Pitts. You could go Matt Ryan on the Philly side, like Jalen Hurts, and Devontae Smith might be sneaky because I don't think a lot of people will play him this week.
Yeah. Any sleepers on the Philadelphia side from a receiver's perspective? Because I know once you get past, we're a little bit confused on, Rager versus Quez Watkins coming on pretty strong there as well. So is there either one of them that you'd be looking at?
Yeah, they're deep sleepers only because of the matchup here against Atlanta, just not very good on the defensive side. So, again, we're talking really deep leagues. I don't think there's a need to really push them into your lineup, but the matchup is definitely right for them to potentially return value.
For sure. And then maybe let's head over to Pittsburgh and Buffalo. I think the first thing that we can talk about, with Pittsburgh is this wide receiver situation that everybody asked about from a DFS perspective, because I think we both said Deontay Johnson earlier from the season perspective, but from a DFS perspective, who are you targeting in this game?
Yeah, it'd probably be Deontay. It just seems like Ben looks for him frequently. He's able to get open. He's got great separation. So he'd be the guy that I lean to. We know Claypool's got a lot of ability. The key for him is, is he going to be – he's probably going to be off the field when they go 2 wide sets. But if they are playing from behind, they are underdogs in this game, then he should be on the field more. Juju, a lot of people kind of sleep on him and they're down on him. But, he caught a ton of passes last year. The yards per reception were low, and that's because Ben wasn't throwing deep. But, yeah, they're all solid. DFS, probably Deontay. Again, we got so many options this week to choose from, and there's really some good pricing, a lot of cheap wide receivers. So I don't think the Pittsburgh receivers are going to be at the top of my list this week.
For sure. And then on the Buffalo side, who do you like over there?
You got to like Josh Allen, right? I know he struggled against Steelers last year, but we've seen it in the preseason. We saw it all last year. They are going to throw a ton. So, he's not a bad option. Diggs, if you're going real cheap, Emmanuel Sanders, not many people are talking about him, but he's older, but he's still a guy that's a savvy route runner, could get open. Running back staying away from, man. Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, good luck trying to figure that out. Josh Allen steals goal line carries. So those guys don't even want any part of them.
Yep. Completely agree. Let's see. Let's do Minnesota and Cincinnati. I think, the biggest thing on there that I see a lot is questions around T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Let's take it back to a season-long perspective with that and talk about what you're doing with those receivers. Who do you see as are you on the side of that you're going with T. Higgins because you think that Jamar Chase he needs time to acclimate to the NFL, or are you comfortable with Jamar Chase at this point?
I don't think you can be comfortable with the drops and everything. I did think over the last couple of weeks he was a buying opportunity, and I was drafting him. I was actually surprised at how far he fell, but there's no way you can feel comfortable starting him here in week one in his first NFL game after the drops that we saw. So I think you need to wait it out on him. But again, I think he's going to pay dividends in the long run. So I think this week it's T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd you go with. And I think this has the chance to be a high-scoring game. I mean, obviously Joe Burrow in his first game back, you want to see how comfortable he is. I think it could be a mental issue for him right now.
Yeah.
Joe Mixon, I think Joe Mixon's $24 on Yahoo. That's an interesting value.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they talked about how he was the MVP in preseason. He's healthy right now. Obviously, the offensive line's still an issue, but no Gio Bernard there, so he should be on the field more, catching the football. So, he's an interesting play. And Minnesota, Cousins got a good matchup. We talked about him a little bit earlier. Dalvin Cook, no-brainer. You got to spend up for him, but he's going to be fed. And Jefferson, again, just who's covering him? The secondary. So he should get peppered with targets as well.
Yeah, and this is a fantastic game. I did this yesterday, so I don't know if I have the most recent, but I saw the over-under was at 48. So, just the firepower that we're going to get from it. I love the Joe Mixon pick. It's very reasonably priced. And, when Joe Mixon is healthy, he is a fantastic top 10 back. So there's no question about that. If you can work him into your lineup, that makes complete sense. Heading over to San Francisco and Detroit. Let's start off with Detroit. Are you rostering anybody in DFS from Detroit this week?
No, it's a tough matchup. Although I will say this, specifically on Yahoo, TJ Hawkinson is only $15. So there are 11 healthy tight ends that are higher priced than Hawkinson. And I understand it. It's a difficult matchup, but if you are looking to save some money at tight end and spend up elsewhere, I think Hawkinson's not a bad play because of the value. And look, he's going to get the targets. I know the 49ers defense is good, and they were good against tight ends last year, but Goff developed a chemistry with him, is going to look for him a lot. They just don't have wide receivers on this team. Tyrell Williams already banged up. They just don't have much. So I think Hawkinson, especially on Yahoo, at that price, because he's going to get the volume.
For sure. Yeah, and just for reference for everybody, Adam mentioned Hawkinson was 15, and just so you know, Kyle Pitts in comparison is 19. Kind of crazy. So seems like a really good cheap play right there. What about on the San Francisco side right there? Are you comfortable with? I didn't look at the pricing for Jimmy Garoppolo, but are you comfortable with maybe doing him if he could be someone that's not very rostered?
No, only because their running game is probably going to feast here. So I think Raheem Mostert, another guy that always looks good when he's on the field. The big question for him in season long is how many games are we going to get out of him, the durability. But in this matchup against an awful defense, he could score 2 touchdowns, maybe 3, even Trey Sermon, because we know they're going to run the football a lot. So, I love the San Francisco run game here. They should really go off. Mostert's in a really good spot. Excellent season-long play this week, too. Definitely a strong RB2, no doubt about it.
And then heading over to the Cardinals and the Titans. I'm going to do something a little different with this one. We've got Derrick Henry priced at $34 on Yahoo. Are you someone who is, if you're going for one of the big running backs this week, are you favoring one versus the other?
Yeah, it's not going to be Henry, I don't think. I think Alvin Kamara is interesting. I think he's 34. He had a huge game against Green Bay last year. He had 38.2 Yahoo points against Green Bay last year. We know Michael Thomas is out. I see Traquan Smith missed practice with a hammy. They're going to feature Kamara in this game. I know it's in a neutral field in Jacksonville, but he's the fourth highest priced running back. I think most weeks he'll be one or two. So we're getting him a little bit cheaper. So I think he's interesting. I mean, McCaffrey's always in play, but you got to spend up. Dalvin Cook's in a great spot. So I'd prefer those guys over Henry in case they play from behind. Or again, I think the weakness for Arizona is their secondary. So maybe this is more of a Tannehill to AJ Brown, Julio Jones game.
For sure. And then when you look at the over-under on this game, it's 52. They're expecting a shootout. So maybe heading over to wide receivers on the other end. Obviously we've got DeAndre Hopkins. He's priced at 31. But beyond that, everybody is super cheap, and for a reason, because we don't really know what's going to happen with that wide receiver 2 situation in Arizona. AJ Green, if he's healthy, is he going to be that guy that's stepping up? And you've got Rondell Moore, who looks fantastic and is the promising one of the future. You've got a couple other guys as well with Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella. Is there anyone who is a play for you from a DFS perspective?
If you're looking for a long shot and you're playing in a big tournament, Rondale Moore, like you said, he's looked really good. He's got to just get the ball in his hands, let him do his thing after the catch. So they're kind of really looking for that number 2 playmaker opposite Hopkins, and this is a good matchup. So he's cheap for a reason. You're not playing him in a cash game. But if you're looking to diversify, I could see in a big field tournament putting him in there and hoping he finds the end zone in this matchup.
And let me ask you about one more. Chase Edmonds, because he's someone that I've had my eye on because, with the potential game script that we've got here, and it being somewhere or a game where we're going pass heavy, he's that guy, he's that running back. When you compare it to James Conner, Chase Edmonds is the pass catching back. Chase Edmonds is priced at $70 or $17 on Yahoo. Is he someone you're potentially looking at?
Yeah, I don't see it this week. Again, the roles in question. I want to see, how much James Conner do we see? And they do need to kind of be playing from behind. So yeah, I just think there are better running backs. I think so. You said Edmonds is 18 or 17?
17.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think there's better running backs in that range. So I'd probably pass on him.
All right. And then heading back over, let's go back over to some Discord questions to wrap things up. We've got Byron. Thank you, Byron, for joining us and submitting a question tonight. I have Godwin and Fournette sitting on my bench, just asking if I should put one in my flex. I have T. Higgins in there right now, PPR.
Okay, yeah, it comes down to Godwin or T. Higgins in this instant. I'm not playing Fournette. Higgins obviously has a really good matchup this week, but I got to go with Godwin. I mean, look, I know there's a lot of competition for targets there, but it's Dallas, man, and Godwin's good to go. He's healthy. Yeah, I mean, look, I think most weeks you're playing your Bucs receivers. I mean, again, this week Brown's a little bit higher for me just because of the matchup with Dallas, but it's hard to sit Godwin. I mean, again, I do like T. Higgins, but what if Burrow struggles in this game? What if, that's certainly possible. Tampa's at home. So I got to go Godwin. He's off the injury report too.
For sure. And then we've got another one from Benny just submitted. And I know which way we're heading with this because the options here need to start one. Fournette, Hunt, Deontay Johnson. You're going to say Deontay Johnson. I know that. I'm going to say that too. But we're going to put Deontay Johnson out of the picture just for a hypothetical. Fournette or Hunt?
Oh, that is really tough. It was PPR, right? I guess. Yeah, I guess in that case you have to go Hunt. Depending on how you see this game playing out, I think it's 6 points. I actually think the Browns could win this game. I really do. They only lost to the Chiefs by 22-17 last year. But if the Browns are playing from behind, that's better for Kareem Hunt. I think if I remember correctly last year, Nick Chubb only had 13 carries in that game against Kansas City, and it was a close game. So this is not the best week for Nick Chubb. You're not benching him, but you're not playing him in DFS. Again, unless you feel the Browns are going to pummel them and lead, I don't, but I do think the Browns can win this game. Absolutely. I think the Browns are AFC championship contender this year. Kareem Hunt or Fournette, I'll go Kareem Hunt. Fournette still has to deal with Ronald Jones and Gio Bernard.
I love that you said that because I have grown to love Kevin Stefanski and appreciate what he has done with that franchise. I'm not a Browns fan. Obviously, I'm a Packers fan, but, you got to feel for the Browns and their history. And I feel for Baker Mayfield as well. I mean, come on. How many coaches did he had to go through over the course of a 2-year period? Kind of crazy. But yeah, I completely agree with you that, people underestimate Cleveland, and it's very possible that this is a game that they could win. So yeah, side note, I just kind of had to put that one out there. All right. And then let's get another question from Discord. What do we got here? Need a flex to replace Edwards. And I'm not sure which Edwards this is.
Gus Edwards.
Gus Edwards. Gosh, yes. I'm sorry. All I have on my mind was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Yeah. Interesting. Anyway, need a flex to replace Edwards, Sutton, Williams. Everyone else has bad matchups. Gallup, Mike Williams, Zach Moss, leaning towards Sutton. Full PPR.
Okay, I'm assuming the Williams was Mike Williams, you said, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I'd probably go with Sutton. It's definitely, they're saying he's healthy. We saw that preseason game where he made the cut. So, yeah, I'd go with Sutton there too.
Yep, makes sense. I agree. All right, and then we've got a start 2, sit 1. Gallup, Waddle, Callaway, PPR.
Gallup, well, I think Callaway, you got to play. Tre'Quan Smith was out today with a hammy, so we're going to play him. And then it was Waddle or Gallup.
Yep.
I'm going to go Gallup. Let me see. Well, Will Fuller's out, the suspension, but it is New England's defense.
Yes.
I'm going to lean Gallup here. Again, Dallas should pass a lot tonight. They should pass 40 times. So I'm going to go Gallup.
I agree with 100% on Callaway. Personally, I think I might lean towards Waddle. I'm kind of interested to see. I'm very excited about. I got a little bit of shares of Waddle. I'm feeling pretty good about it, and I think that connection that he's going to have with Tua right off the bat. And I want to see it. I would take the risk on there, but I agree with you. The safer option.
It's close. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to argue with you on that. I think it's
safer option though. Gallup. All right, let's see. We've got another replacing Edwards. Yes, people, bring us all your replacement of Gus Edwards questions before we wrap it up here. Hines, Swift, and Jay Williams. I don't know if that's I'm going to assume it's Jamal. Because he said Swift.
Javonte.
Javonte.
Could be either. So we don't. I'm going to go Deandre Swift.
Yeah, I think that makes sense as well. All right, let's see. What else do we have here?
Yeah, that's good for future reference. Don't say Jay Williams because it could be Javonte.
Yeah. And I'm a little biased. Every time I see Jay Williams, I'm always going to say see Jamal. So.
Oh yeah, the Packers history.
Yes. We've got a drafting question. Maybe it's for the future, or maybe it's in season. Hopkins or Metcalf? Who you got?
I have Hopkins ranked slightly higher, but it's really Hopkins had so much volume in the offense last year and just didn't find the end zone enough. Arizona really struggled in the red zone, so that's going to be the key. If they can score more touchdowns, maybe part of it was Kyler Murray with the shoulder injury in the second half. But I really do love the Seattle offense. I love Metcalf. I love Lockett. Shane Waldron coming in, more up pace, more creativity in the offense. We heard Metcalf say last year they were predictable. So I really like both Seattle receivers to go off. When you're talking Metcalf and Hopkins, you're really splitting hairs. They both should have big years. But Hopkins probably will get a little bit more volume because they will throw a little bit more. But Metcalf's the more explosive player. But Hopkins is going to get the volume.
For sure. And then let's get one more question in here. Let's see. Someone dropped Michael Carter for Latavius Murray today. Who am I dropping to claim him? Tony Jones, Terrace Marshall, or Elijah Moore?
Tony Jones.
Yeah.
He's the backup for Kamara. But again, Michael Carter, you're going to have to be patient with him. I mean, maybe he surprises week one. They put him on the field. He's the best back, and the Jets go, all right, he's our guy. But it could take a few weeks. And we saw it with some of the rookies last year. And I'm assuming this is a bench stash. So we know Tony Jones needs a Kamara injury to happen. Carter really doesn't. Carter just needs to get on the field and show some explosiveness, and the Jets can go, okay, yeah, we're going with him. So, yeah, Tony Jones.
For sure. And I unfortunately watched that North Carolina game last week, and it just made it more obvious how fantastic Carter must be. Carter, Javonte, Diame, yeah, obviously they are great players. But I think we're going to wrap that up. We've hit 7 o'clock and we're ready to go watch some football. Any last words, Adam?
Go Cowboys.
Yes. Okay, I'll back you up. Yes, we'll cheer for the Cowboys, even though I kind of want to see, what the GOAT can do this year. But, hey, we'll go Cowboys. All right, guys, we are closing up. It is game time. We're going to wrap things up, and it's time for you to go enjoy the game. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week for our Thursday night pregame show. We'll be back here next week taking your questions, previewing the game, and the game next week is the Giants versus Washington. So that'll be very interesting. I'm Tera Roberts with Adam Ronis. Good night and enjoy the game, guys.